Well, it's 6 o'clock. We'll call the work session to order. If Phil can lead us in prayer.
Yep. Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, God, we come to you today thanking you for the beautiful day you bestowed upon us, Lord. Thank you, God, for all the blessings of life, Lord. And I just pray, Lord, I ask that you would go with us in this meeting and grant us the knowledge and wisdom we need, Lord, to make good and sound decisions for the city, Lord. And God, I just thank you for the city of Cumming and the employees and everyone that's got a hand in making this organization what it is today, Lord. Go with us the rest of this evening. Grant us traveling graces back to our home. Lead, guide, and direct us. It's in the name of Jesus I pray this prayer. Amen.
Amen. Everyone join us in the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Lewis coming? Or? Gotcha. There are no changes for the agenda. Do I have a motion to adopt?
Motion to adopt.
Please vote. Motion carries 4-0 with Lewis Ledbetter absent. Item 5, consider for adoption the following meeting minutes. The regular council meeting of February 19th, 2019. I have a motion to adopt.
Motion to adopt.
Please vote. Carries 4-0. Item 6, there is none. Item 7, there is none. Item 8, there is a lot. Administration, item 1, insurance renewal with Gail Petrie.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Gail Petrie with Apex Insurance, and I'm here to present your insurance renewal for the 1920 policy term. This is for property and casualty. I gave everybody a packet of information, so we're just going to start with the first page there. As your insurance broker, we put your insurance out for bid every year, and this year we went to 7 different carriers. We received quotes from 2 of them. Several carriers were interested in quoting but declined due to pricing because they just didn't feel like they can be competitive with the rates that y'all have right now. So that's a good and a bad thing. It means you're paying great rates for your insurance, but there are several carriers that didn't feel like they could be competitive. One carrier did quote your property, and it was actually a little bit lower, but they could not quote any of the other lines, and the 2 proposals that we did receive offered all lines quotes, so they're not willing to take the property portion out and allow you to put just that one piece of it with Liberty Mutual. So if you'll just turn to the very first spreadsheet that I presented there, that is going to be your incumbent carrier, which is Travelers. And if you don't mind, let's just skip to the second page and just start at the bottom and start with the premium renewals, what it was last year and what it is this year, and then we'll back into anything that y'all have questions about. Last year, your expiring premium was $220,032, and then you'll see a column that's called annualized premiums. And what we do to annualize your premiums is we take your last year's insurance rates and apply them to this year's exposures to get a true feel of what you're comparing, so you'll have an apples to apples figure there. So you'll see if you take last year's rates and apply them to this year's exposures, your premium going into this year would have been $234,531, and Travelers came in under that by $5,763 for a savings, coming in at $228,768. So the rates actually went down slightly this year, but we have had some exposure increases. Just briefly, the exposures are listed on this page, but just to recap quickly so you know, going from 18 to 19, we had an increase in the budget, of course. The number of employees increased from 253 to 267, so that would fall under your public officials and your employment practices liability. We have one more Class A officer this year than we did last year. The exposure for your water department is based on your water payroll, your water customers served, and the miles of sewer line. And we've had an increase in the payroll. We've had an increase in the number of customers we serve. It went from 20,125 to 20,668, so that's an increase of 543 people that we're serving. And then our miles of sewer line increased from 427 to 504, so that was an increase of 77 miles. Our number of autos that we're insuring this year went from 93 to 99, and our building and contents values increased from 71,213,405 to 72,088,917. That's an increase of $875,512. And then finally, we had a slight increase in your inland marine. It went from 216, 265 to 239, 264. And that was primarily due to our new pretty sign that we have, our LED sign there on Fall Ridge. So those are the increases that made up your premium going into 2019. So are there any questions just as far as your incumbent is concerned with travelers, what they had? Because all of the limits and all of the deductibles are exactly the same as what you had last year. One thing I do want to point out, if you look at the bottom of that sheet for travelers, they did offer an optional quote this year for computer fraud and funds transfer fraud for only $289. I would probably recommend that you do that. It's a great coverage. What that would do would be protect you if someone else, a third party, got a hold of your computer system and had transferred funds fraudulently. That would protect you for there. We've got $100,000 in coverage for that. Or if, and this is something we've had a lot here recently, where someone within the city might get a fraudulent email from someone that looks like a city official, like mayor. It may look like it's going from you to Phil or Jeff and say, you know, I need you to transfer X amount of dollars from this fund to this for an upcoming event we're having. And it looks completely legit, and it's not. And so that would cover you for something like that. So that's $289 additional premium.
But it doesn't cover like a ransom situation.
Well, actually, the extortion expenses, like if somebody's holding you ransom, we do have coverage for that. What you've actually got coverage that's twofold. You've got one that protects you personally for expenses that you're out, like we had just this past year, where you have to pay somebody to come in and figure out the source of the ransom and the expenses that you incur in getting all of that back to square one. There's also coverage for a third party if, let's say, a private citizen's personal information got out into the public. But the only time that coverage would kick in is if you have that third party file a claim against you. And we didn't have any third parties come forward.
No, I'm saying if they take over your computer and the only way you're gonna get it back is pay them $500 in ransom, it
Well,
doesn't pay that, right?
Actually, we do have travelers, actually, if you look under the cyber liability, it says cyber first liability on that second page. The very last thing where it says extortion expenses, Travelers has thrown in, they didn't charge you anything for it, but they did put $10,000 worth of coverage in there for extortion. Now, if you wanted to increase that limit, I can get you quotes to do that. That was just a throw-in. They didn't charge you anything to do that. So it is a new coverage this year.
So that's new for this year, that was not for last year.
Correct.
Yep.
Correct.
Does this work in such a way as you need just one provider, you can't pick and choose from the different box selections? Because, I mean, Selected's almost $25,000 cheaper than automobile.
Exactly. And the way that, no, to answer your question, no, unfortunately, you can't. The carriers won't do that. Typically, what they'll do is they'll offer an all lines package quote, and it's pretty much an all or nothing situation. Now, there's certain lines of coverage where sometimes we can do that. If you have like public officials law and an EPL are three of the ones that sometimes we can pull those out and put them separately. Personally, I feel like it's better to have all your coverages with one carrier, because then if you get into a situation where you've got a claim that it could partly fall under the law and partly fall under the public officials or your DL, you don't have the carriers battling whose claim it is.
Right.
So
That
it,
makes sense.
mhm.
Who was the carrier last year?
Travelers. Mhm, yes, ma'am. So this quote that we're looking at right now is your incumbent carrier, so this represents everything exactly what you had last year. So again, the rates actually went down, so that's good. You just have more exposures this year than you had last year, so we're good there. One thing I did want to ask you, well, actually, I'll come back to that. Let's go ahead and look at the comparative quote that I have between Travelers and Selective, because there's a couple things I did want to point out, and it's actually the reason why I feel like we need to stay with Travelers this year. One of them is under your general liability, under sewer backup. Selective is only offering $50,000 in sewer backup coverage, where Travelers is at $100,000. That's for a third-party sewer backup claim, so if we cause a sewer backup into someone else's property, you've got a $500,000 limit there versus a $50,000 limit with Selective. So that's pretty significant right there. And then if you go down under public officials liability, defense expense reimbursement for injunctive relief claims, Selective has a $10,000 per suit limit, and Travelers has a $50,000 per suit limit, so that's pretty significant. And the other thing I wanted to point out under employment practices, you'll see under defense for EEOCs, Selective has a $100,000 cap. So if you get an employment claim from the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, you're going to be capped with Selective at $100,000, whereas the limit with Travelers is dovetailed into your $1 million limit. So you actually have $1 million limits under Travelers for you. Same with your lost wages. You have a $10,000 cap with Selective, and you have $1 million limit with Travelers. So that's pretty much the differences there. The only other thing I kind of wanted to point out on page 2 under the property, you'll see that the total limit for Selective says $67,577,000, and Travelers is at $72,088,927. That's a pretty big difference, but what happened is Selective, because they were with y'all back in 2017, for some reason, when underwriting quoted it this year, they picked up your expiring limit from when they wrote you in 2017. And what Travelers does every year, and this is great because obviously building costs go up and Travelers kind of stays on top of that. Selective, the one thing that they don't do that I wish they would is we could give them a statement of values and tell them that one of your buildings was worth $1 million in 2008, and in 19, if we don't tell them it's more than that, it'll still be $1 million, you know what I'm saying? Travelers every year takes your entire statement of values, they plug all your buildings into their system, and they rate it based on your square footage, what the building's made out of, what the roof is made out of, and what it would cost to replace that building. And if they feel like it's underinsured, they'll bump it to where they feel like you're back up to replacement cost for that building. So if I got Selective to quote apples to apples with Travelers, that would make their premium go up even more because they'd have to match what Travelers did. So based on that, I would recommend you stay with Travelers. The one question I do want to ask you guys is, this next page, I included this because every year we always drop off the vehicles that are 5 years and older. So for this year, it would be all your 2014s. And I wanted you to see this though, because we didn't take that into account. We didn't take the 2014s out. So I went back to Travelers and said, you know, I need to get a quote from you as to what the return premium would be if we dropped all the 2014s. So the return premium to do that would be $1,307. It's kind of up to you what you want to do about that, but I wanted you to see the type of vehicles that the 2014s are, because we've got a lot of Silverados. There's a couple of F-250s, and, you know, they're still pretty valuable vehicles, so for it being such a nominal return premium, I just didn't want to take them off without asking you if you wanted me to. Because you can see right beside at $14.99, that's the class code that those vehicles are. You can see all the original cost news. And so I actually just kind of researched that a little bit, like say the very first one, this Ford F-150, it's still valued, or the original cost new was $17,900. So based on just the research I did on that year model, it looked to me like pretty much all your 2014s are running about $10,000 to $12,000 less their actual cash value than what they were when they were new. So for a $28,000 truck, you still could recoup somewhere between $10,000 and $12,000 if it was total on just one truck. So I just, again, I didn't want to take them off without asking you first, because the return premium is only $1,307.
John, have you got any idea on some of these, because you got most of them in the 14 models? I mean, are they still good trucks, or are you looking at replacing them?
We try to replace them on a regular basis, Mayor, and the council's gracious to let us do it, so I think we're on track, you know, as the years go on, we replace a few a year, you know, with the council gives us approval.
No, I guess where I'm coming from is, are these 50,000 mile trucks, 75, or are they 175,000 mile trucks?
Oh, she talked about it?
Yeah.
I had to look at the list.
Yeah, I mean, I know you couldn't, but I mean, if you got a guess.
We've got some bigger ones that have got a lot of miles on them. But, you know, you don't put them much.
Again, and we've done it every year, and it makes good business sense. I mean, you don't want to be carrying constant collision on a vehicle that's not worth anything, because the offset on the premium sometimes is better than keeping an older unit on your schedule. But again, it just seemed like there were some of these 2014s look like they could still be of some value, but if they've got over 100,000 miles on them, then probably not.
Because we had one get totaled this past year that we didn't have insurance on it, but it was one that would have been worthy of having insurance.
I'd have to look at it.
Why do we not have insurance?
Because it was that old and it had dropped off.
You have liability.
Right.
Right, you have liability on all your vehicles, yes.
You're talking about $230,000, $1,300 is not a lot.
It's still under the others.
I would prefer carrying insurance, in my opinion.
That's already in that quote that we've got.
If you had a robbery and they came in and they took the computers or whatever's of value, would it be your price?
Yes, ma'am, you had replacement costs.
Well, it says it's not covered.
On, what are we looking at?
Robbery, other crimes,
Under crime.
on the comparison, the Travelers and Select,
Oh, okay. Let's see.
robbery or safe burglary.
Okay. Are you talking theft of money and securities inside and out. Under
Yeah.
I think it's the one right above that. It's just
Robbery or
general.
safe.
Robbery or safe burglary. I know we probably don't even, I don't know about safe, but just a robbery. If you had people come in and, you know how a lot of times it's kids usually, but.
Yes. And to answer your question, Selective did quote robbery and safe burglary, and Travelers didn't. Now, Travelers can quote robbery and safe burglary, so if you
Well, I
want.
don't know if it's needed, but I just usually thought that
Yeah.
was probably covered.
Yeah. It's not a coverage, you'd be surprised, it's not a coverage that a lot of people do carry, because usually your money is pretty secured. But if you're interested in me going back to Travelers and asking them to quote it, I certainly can do
If
that.
most public buildings don't carry it, then obviously we probably don't need it, so
Yeah.
that's okay. I just
But
wondered.
if you had a safe that you know, have a lot of money in at any one point in time, and you were worried about that exposure, it's probably pretty nominal.
That safe sits in Jeff.
Truly, I don't know. Jeff's watching it.
But you do have.
Somebody be
you know,
breaking in
theft
Jeff's
of
office
monies
tonight.
inside and outside. I do want to clarify though, if somebody came in and let's say one of your people were taking money to the bank and you were robbed on the way to the bank, there is coverage for that. It's just if they entered your premises and broke into a vault,
But
that's
generally, that's not covered by most public buildings, correct?
correct.
Okay, thank you.
Correct.
Phil, do we have like a master report anywhere on the city, or is it up to each department? Like on vehicles and their
We've got
age and the
Allison-
mileage?
Allison keeps one pretty up to date.
Then like maybe next year, then we insure them this year, next year, then y'all can look through them and decide, well, we're gonna
Yeah.
drop these
Right.
and then quote it with those dropped
Yeah, we can
off.
definitely do that. And, you know, like we were talking about the other vehicle, it was kind of a specialty vehicle. It wasn't a typical 2007 truck. It was
Yeah, it had
a utility
Work
bed,
bed on the
a
back.
diesel engine, and it would have been more prudent to keep coverage on it because, you know, it was about 100,000 miles, but it was a diesel engine with that bed on it, so,
it had been babied.
yeah.
Yeah, and diesels last
Mhm.
obviously a lot longer. And that's something I will say, it doesn't have to be like all 2014s and older. I mean, we can cherry pick whatever you want to keep on your schedule. If you think there's some vehicles on there that are still worth more and you want to keep those on, but you want to take these off, we can do it any way you want to.
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah, we'll do that next year.
What about the computer fraud?
For 289, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
For $100,000 in coverage for 289, I would recommend it. Because we are seeing that more and more these days. These crooks are getting smarter by the minute with what they do. It's crazy.
She's right.
I just had a school system just a few weeks ago get hit by that very thing. And their finance director felt horrible about it. He just said, I can't believe I have fallen victim to this. I should have known better. But when they looked at what
Yeah, we
he
can.
received, it looked completely legit. So,
Right.
Are y'all ready to vote?
I'm good with it. I'll make a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve Travelers, with the both optional quotes added, computer fraud and the deletion, and the 2014 vehicles.
No, we're not. That would be a return
Yeah,
premium.
they're already in there, the
Yeah,
vehicles.
Yeah, it's already
Yeah.
in there.
So the only addition would be the
Would be the
computer
two.
fraud.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Please vote. Motion carries 4-0. Thank you, Gail.
thank you very much.
Next is report on RFPs for solid waste collection and recycling.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, and members of council, we had decided earlier in the year to put out our garbage, our solid waste collection and recycling collection services on an RFP. We did that, and we have some results to report tonight. We received proposals from 3 companies, Red Oak Sanitation, the incumbent carrier, Advanced Disposal, and Waste Pro. After analyzing the proposals, looking at not only the cost, but the acknowledgement of the different proposers for our required level of service, it's my recommendation that we stay with Red Oak for 2019. I want to add to that the other 2 providers, one quoted in their proposal that they would not pick up any garbage outside of their can, and we know that's a problem from what we've experienced this last year. People sometimes have an extra bag or 2 or more. And I think we've made it clear to Red Oak they're expected to pick that up.
Have they been? I know
haven't had
there
many
have been
complaints.
problems for a while about that.
The other carrier,
The
Waste
extras.
Pro, would only quote bi-weekly pickup, which I don't think would be a good solution for our town. Therefore,
Both those quotes were higher than.
they were also
as well.
higher, yes. Red Oak was also the least expensive of the quotes. They're actually a quarter. Last year's quote was $11.50 per customer, residential and commercial. This year was $11.25. So it'll be a slight reduction in what we paid over the last year. So I'm recommending tonight that we stay with Red Oak for 2019. And if y'all have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Phil, I know we've had some problems but you have had multiple conversations with the principals.
Yeah, we have, and they've gave us some kind of assurances that they've got a plan going forward as far as tracking their drivers. It's kind of a GPS system that shows when they're at each location, so we'll be able to better track when they were at calls that claimed that they were missed.
I've seen a lot better.
We had a pretty stern powwow with them.
Yeah,
It's really improved, let me tell you.
good.
They're gonna start tracking each time they pick up.
Yeah, it's a software package they've added that if the user uses it right in the trucks, it'll show when they were at each stop. But, that's still something they're working on.
You can watch real time them driving down your street. When they stop to pick the trash up, the guy's getting the trash, the driver's hitting the
Like
button,
windshield
that he got it,
wiper.
Yeah,
So if you get to take the trash out, just look at the app.
yeah.
Run down there.
They're on the way.
Any other questions or discussion? I have a motion to approve.
I make a motion that we approve Red Oak Sanitation for 2019.
Second.
Please vote. Carries 4-0. Item 3, advertising on digital sign.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we've had some interest recently in advertising on our digital sign. I know we had talked about that previously in other meetings where we would allow people to do that for a fee that would help offset the cost of the signs. We need to probably establish a fee structure for that, and if there are any guidelines we want to go by on allowing people to do that.
You're talking this sign right there.
The welcome sign. And then they're working on, it'll be done in the next 3 weeks, 3 to 4 weeks, but they went out there and graded, and we're putting another one up at Dobbs Creek at the gym coming into the city. It'll have a fixed sign on the backside of it, so if you were leaving the city, it just says City of Cumming Park and Rec, Dobbs Creek, the logo, but the coming into town, because you'd be on the same side of the road, it's got the digital. That's the one we approved before at Kelly Mill, but that didn't work out.
Y'all notice the black letters you can't see at night? It's the City of Cumming. Is there any interest in seeing what it takes to make those white? When you drive through, you can't see a City of Cumming on there at all. That was kind of
The
red
pro,
and black face together.
the problem would be, in the daytime, you're gonna see
Yeah.
Cumming with a squiggly line coming off of it. I mean, you gotta get wire and you gotta get power to it. And that's a solid 4x12 beam.
What would it cost to,
And the one
Make
the
those-
solution for that is Crystal could start whatever she advertises. I'm just saying that, I'm not putting on her. She can put a little strip, City of Cumming, and then whatever the advertising is.
what would be the process?
That could be there for whatever.
somebody to advertise on their sign?
I'd have to contact City Hall, or like I've had somebody that wants to, they're a business in the city, but they're wanting to advertise for Central High School. And then just put, you know, brought to you by the company, you know.
As you would do that?
I think
So
we
it
just,
really wouldn't, poor Crystal's getting an extra job, but it really wouldn't be something new. Correct?
No, she does that stuff. And most of that, they would bring her what they want, and she just,
we just need to draw up a simple agreement for people to complete to do that will show the fees that they'll have to pay.
What would be a sensible fee?
But what worries me though, before we talk about a fee, is picking and choosing. Wouldn't that have any issues with that?
You have to be content neutral. I mean, that's, when you're dealing with, because we are a government entity,
Right.
everything has to be content neutral. You can't turn down somebody just because you disagree with their message. Gail's eyes got this big. Gail's thinking 1983 claims back there. So, that's the thing.
Well, I don't
Yeah,
really
it
like that
could be a-
because
Advertise the liquor shop on there.
on the City of Cumming sign, I mean.
Well, I mean, there are certain, it's going to be a process that when you start going through it, that what I would suggest is you're gonna have to look at it and see if it's something you're comfortable with based upon what you're getting. If you're getting things that you think at the end of the day it would not be appropriate for the city of Cumming to advertise, then you shut down all
That's what I'm
advertising
saying.
outside the city.
But now,
you
like
don't know
Central
if
High
it's-
School, why couldn't you just give it to them free?
y'all would have to vote to do
They
it.
are the only high school within the city of
No,
Cumming.
we got Alliance Academy too.
Well, okay, if Alliance Academy wants to put something in, or
But
Horizons,
Again, how do you choose who gets what? I mean,
whoever comes first in that case, because the, I mean,
I'm saying like, if somebody down the road, if they're advertising something somebody might not agree with, it's the same nonprofit, how do you say, tell them no if you let schools around? You see what I'm saying?
yeah, I do exactly.
I think it might present some challenges, I don't know.
Everything nowadays is a challenge. You might be better off just to
Yeah,
let it alone.
I'm bringing it to y'all because somebody came to me wanting to do it, so that's why we're having the
See, like,
discussion.
that makes a ton of sense, what they're wanting to do, but it just worries me opening that door.
Yep, and it opens the door. You know.
What if we allow them to sponsor certain things, and then down at the bottom it says brought to you by that company's name, that's all I'm saying. They can sponsor city events, high schools, school events, things like that, and then at the bottom it says brought to you by.
You're suggesting turn it into part of the package that people would get. For example, there's another music fest coming up at
Right.
the fairgrounds in June, and if Kumo's going to support that, and we were going to put a thing for that on the sign.
Anyway.
Then they could say, you know, brought to you by, whatever, that's your suggestion.
But that could be included in their sponsorship
Right.
package.
True. That could be. What is Central wanting to do?
It wasn't Central, it was, and I just not want to say his name because it's, I think that part's irrelevant, but he wanted to advertise something for the school athletic program.
And then say, I guess say, brought to you by whoever's business it is.
Right.
And that, like I said, that makes a ton of sense, and I wouldn't mind that, it just, I feel like it might open the door to some things.
Yeah, I mean, if you let them start advertising or whatever they want.
It's a shame that this era of time, that we can't do something as simple as let somebody advertise for the school. without worrying that we're opening the door for.
There was some major sign litigation not too long ago.
Well, it's just anytime we're dealing with free speech issues, you know, we have to just say, if you want to
All
do
or
this, and
none.
I'm certainly not suggesting that you don't open it up to people who want to do it for commercial purposes. All I'm suggesting is that when you do open it up to people who want to do it for commercial purposes, you may find yourself in a situation where you decide we're gonna shut the whole thing down and go back to just having city public events. I mean, you're not going to know until you try.
Yeah.
So-
But it could become one of those, you got so many doing it that it might be every 3 minutes that a City of Cumming message pops up.
Yeah.
Because you got so much advertising that you're doing.
I know some of the digital billboard guy, he said he does like 12. He rolls through 12.
And have to be displayed for 10 seconds, so it's 120 seconds
Yeah.
before you're getting, you can see the same message again.
Could you do it where people could sponsor the sign, like Chad was saying?
Absolutely, yeah, you could say that if you want, if it's a city event, or you could even make it so that it's public events.
Right.
So you could have it so that it is Central's, baseball game, or Central's in the playoffs for baseball, and, if somebody wanted to sponsor that on the city sign, they could do that. You could. Mhm.
Yeah.
Would it be events only held within the city?
It would be, well, that's up to y'all. There's nothing that says you have to limit it to that. Like if there was gonna be a concert somewhere out in the county and you wanted to support that. The key would be this, when you're doing that. You're going to put the sign up anyway. You're gonna put that notice up anyway. Somebody just wants to
Sponsoring
sponsor
that page.
particular
Right.
thing. But now here again, if some, if it's a package store or a massage parlor or a vape shop that wants to do it, that's where you get into the content issue. You're gonna have to let them do it just like you would anyone else.
Right, at that point, wouldn't have any kind of their personal message.
That's correct, yeah, absolutely, yeah. If Jake's Vapes, I hope that doesn't exist. Wanted to sponsor, the Central's baseball team, having a home game.
Great.
But that's the thing, yeah.
But then you could potentially run into the same problem that way.
Only if you're concerned about it at that point.
Right.
I mean, as, Councilman Crane said, it's not their message, it's your message.
Right.
They're just saying,
Sponsor.
yeah.
And
I like that idea.
who gets to choose?
Well, it would be, if they're sponsored, if it's a public, they'd have to draw an ordinance.
And you can set, and again, you can set any kind of regulation you want to that's content neutral. I mean, if you wanted to set a limit on the number of advertisers who could be on there, let's say you were gonna go commercial, let people could do it for commercial purposes, you could set three is the maximum number, and then once you have 3 spots filled up, nobody else can advertise on it until one of those 3 spots rolls off. You could set it so that, time limit certainly, and then also if you're talking about just having different businesses or entities or individuals support city events or public events that are occurring in the city, you could say, we're gonna allow one entity to sponsor this event. And then they do that, and then there's no other entity sponsoring that event. So as long as the regulation is content neutral, you're fine. That's the key.
What would you charge?
Well, I'm your lawyer. I don't make that decision.
You're gonna spend at a minimum $500 a month for a big digital billboard, up to over 1,000.
But on this, you're just getting a little line that says.
Right, on a lot
you're
smaller
yeah.
sign that doesn't have the traffic count
Yeah, you're
that,
not running an ad, so you can't charge a whole lot, I wouldn't think, for that.
So, to sponsor it would be.
But see, if it's public events, though, we want them to be able to do that on there with the sponsorship,
Right.
What is our cost personally? It doesn't take nothing for you to do. They provide the graphics and everything,
small thing at the bottom.
Right.
So at that point, we would have to be willing to put the message up, then they could sponsor it.
Or you could even have, I mean, just to kind of throw it out there, you don't have to say, this is the message we are putting up. But you could have like Crystal could keep a list, I love adding things to your job. Crystal could have a list of events that are going on in the
Right.
city, and if somebody wanted to sponsor something, they could look at that list, and they could say, I'll sponsor that one.
Right.
And if there's no sponsor, it doesn't get put up.
Well, that's up to you, you can put it up if you wanted to, but if there's no sponsor, certainly if somebody does want to
How are
sponsor.
you gonna know what events are going on in the city every week? The high
No,
school?
we know, I mean, we know.
Yeah, you know, okay, very good.
I like that idea.
I like that idea. Put all the events up, and if somebody wants to sponsor them, they pay, and then they brought to you by. If they don't pay for it, then it goes on there anyway, and it's just not brought to you by somebody.
So what do you think about, $100, $200 a month?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
That was the number that was sticking in my head, was 200.
I mean, it doesn't have to be tiny at the bottom of the screen. I mean, it still can be the event, and then the next screen can be brought to you by, a little bit bigger, so you can kind of see it. I mean, you don't want to not see it.
Well, the event probably wouldn't run a month. The event probably, by the time.
I'm saying they could just sponsor, they could say, well, I just want to sponsor events in the city, and you just roll them from one event to another one. You can do that too. We just need language in whatever agreement that the city at its discretion can stop that practice and refund any monies that have already
Absolutely.
been,
What would we?
you know, if we decide, well, this isn't worth the headache.
Right.
We need an application, I guess.
We've actually, Phil asked me
Yeah, we could
We'll
go
start working on it, something, we've
start
already
looking at
started
it.
working on it. And actually, this will be more simple than what we were thinking about doing, if we're not going to allow people to actually do commercial advertisement on it.
So for tonight, I think we just, do we give you enough direction and then bring us something actually?
I actually have a direction at this point, if we can bring something back for you to look at for the meeting later this
Just
month.
work with Crystal on how that would work too.
Okay.
I don't have to take action on that.
No, you just wait till we have you in agreement.
Yep. All right. Moving on, number 4, joint meeting with Board of Commissioners.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, there is a meeting on the 26th of March at 2 p.m. And I think some of you were at the last joint meeting we had. This one, my understanding is there's going to be a presentation of the Georgia Mountain Regional Commission, which I think most of you may have seen. There's also going to be, though, a presentation by Mr. Hurd and Mr. Perkins of the county on the project to return flows to Lake Lanier, correct? Okay, Mr. Lovejoy is going to be working on that project instead of Mr. Hurd.
Is it 2 o'clock? or
2 o'clock on
26?
the 26th. And the question that we had was, is I don't think we've advertised this yet as
No, we
a
haven't.
meeting. My understanding was that this probably was going to be another joint meeting, and if that's the case, I just want to make sure that we have the right direction in terms of getting it advertised and notice and agenda so that we comply with the meeting.
What are they doing, Andy? What are they wanting to meet about?
That's how your joint discharge into Lake Lanier,
We talked about it that last.
plan to serve both city and county.
See if we both can get together and have the same.
One plan.
Share a pipe going.
Share a pipe, not plan.
And, you know, they directed John and Tim to get together and come up with some kind of proposal.
We met with them.
Yeah, we met with them, but there's also direction from the meeting with ARC for Tim and,
So
We
that's.
want to go to the ARC,
This is GMRC. The last one was ARC.
Right.
but Jim ARC.
I'm saying that's when we met before it was ARC.
Yeah.
So it seems like it is going to be a joint meeting, so we'll make sure that gets handled and
Yep.
advertised and everything. Okay.
That was 2 o'clock.
That's what I have on my calendar.
Is that set in stone, this? Or is that just set?
We'll confirm it, and it will include that in the notice of the meeting. But I believe that's what, I believe that is set.
I think that was verbally announced at the last joint meeting,
Okay.
but I'll check.
Next on the agenda is alcohol ordinance update.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, we have, one of the ordinances that we have not looked at, this year and made any changes to is your alcohol ordinance. And we're going to be looking into that to do a couple of updates on it. And rather than us getting into it and making a couple of changes and then coming back and making a couple more later, we're going to bring that to your attention so that if there are particular things that you're wanting us to look at, and make changes to, we can try and get them all knocked out at once. A couple of the ones that we have, that we've already been asked to look at and make, well, the one we've certainly been asked to look at is service for consumption on the premises of malt beverages and wine in situations where you would have, for example, a cigar shop or something along those lines. That we've been asked to look into. The county currently allows that, and we have some people who are interested in doing those types of uses in the city. We have also been asked previously to look into the ability for, and this would apply mainly in situations where you've got an events facility like your city park recreation facility, to have servers who are not necessarily tied to a restaurant, who could possibly then be the ones who are going to be provided doing the serving of alcohol at an event, as long as they're go through a licensing process with the city. Those are the two big things that we've talked about previously.
So you say get a license, go to the city and ask for a permit for one night or something?
No, this would be more along the lines of somebody who could then serve essentially as a, like a way to put it, as a bartender at private events where alcohol is being sold, if there's not already some, like a restaurant or something like that is providing.
If the caterer.
They could also be, for example, if there was a caterer who is already licensed and they needed additional servers, it could be somebody who's essentially working for that caterer freelance and able to provide service there as well.
But you wouldn't have to have a caterer with a license. You wouldn't have to, because now you have to.
Well, that's a rule and regulation of the events facility itself. And so I'm not necessarily talking about every event that goes on in the city. I'm just talking about right now about at the city park recreation facility. If there are other things that you want us to look at or get into, we want to bring that to your attention. You don't have to tell us now.
I have a question. How does our ordinance handle two things the county's done recently for these live, work, and play communities?
Mhm.
The trendy thing they've done, make sure that alcohol can be purchased at a restaurant. You can walk around the park outside for a disclosed location for the area. I mean, you can't walk on 20 or something, but so I don't know how our ordinance. I don't know how our ordinance handles that.
Can't do it.
Okay, so we might want to look
Where we are now.
the city center.
Sure.
And then some of these others that seem to be going too far. And then microbreweries and distilleries. I don't know that our alcohol ordinance will allow something like Cherry Street even, and I think we're gonna need that for some new development. I think those are a big trendy thing that people like and are cool. And we need to look and make sure that they would be allowed in some sort of zoning or ordinance.
We can put that in the draft for you to look at and consider. Anything else you can think of that has come up that people have talked to you about? And you guys can certainly reach out to Bill and let him know that he can,
Yep.
if you guys have something else that has come up that you want us to take a look at while working on this.
Nothing else?
All right, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Next is item B, streets, report on bids for a dump truck.
Get up here, Mr. Mayor.
Take your time.
I'll talk to you. Gail,
Hey,
14, model 14 trucks. How about 89s and 90s?
Those are classics. The price goes up.
He's got a couple of them.
You got a couple 89s?
Yeah. I'm trying to replace one of them tonight, if you'll help us. We do have one particular truck, which is a 21-year-old Ford truck. It doesn't have a lot of miles on it, just 70,000 miles. miles don't mean anything in our department. It's stopping and starting about 150 times a day is the problem with our trucks. And we've already put 2 transmissions in this truck, and there's no need to keep pouring good money after bad. But when we began to make our budget up for the 19 budget, we used a figure of $86,000, Mr. Mayor, which included a truck and a body for that truck, 16-foot dump bed. When we actually put those out for bid, we had 2 bids on the truck, one from Allen Vigil Ford over at Monroe, $66,200, and one from Wade Ford, which came in at $57,900. And we only had 1 bid for the body on the truck, which those are really, there are very few people who do this kind of work anymore. It has to be made for the truck, and Ingram truck bodies over at Ball Ground are certainly our choice for doing that kind of work. So we had a bid of $57,901 for the truck from Wade Ford and $18,190 from Ingram Truck Bodies. And the street department would like to recommend to you all that we accept the bid of $57,901 from Wade Ford and $18,109 from Ingram Bodies, and this still leaves us, Mr. Mayor, at $9,909 less than what was approved in our budget. So we're below that figure, and we would appreciate if we could get this truck. It's going to take us 12 to 14 weeks to get the truck if we order it in the morning, so it's no quick thing.
Well, they do an excellent job, and they need the equipment to be able to keep doing that job. Probably even got a little better air conditioning in it.
And FM radio.
Yeah. But can we sell the 8-track that's in it now?
Sir,
Can we sell the 8-track that's in it now?
I don't think we've even got one of the old trucks.
Oh, that's not 8-track, that's cassette. 21.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve as recommended.
Please vote. Carries 4-0. Thank you, Hugh.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Next is item C, the Aquatic Center report on bids for replastering the instructional pool.
Good evening. So we have put out for bid to restructure to replaster the instructional pool. There's some pitting and some cracks in certain places. So usually plastering lasts about 10 years. So the instructional pool is an extremely high-use pool, just like the outdoor leisure pool is, which we replastered last year. So the good news is that our big pool, the competition pool, we're not going to need to replaster that for a few years. The quotes provided, they include replastering the pool as well as replacing the main drains. So the requirement is that we replace those at minimum every 10 years. So it makes sense to do that when we drain the pool. We are going to do this work between May 29th and April 7th, which is spring break. So we don't offer swim lessons, which, you know, the instructional pool is used for lots of different purposes, but that's really our biggest revenue stream is swim lessons. So it makes sense to do it when we're not offering swim lessons. We don't offer them spring break because we don't have instructors, to be honest, because they all go away, never mind the participants. So the quotes provided, the lowest bid was Mayan Pool and Sports at $27,525. Aquatic Consulting and Equipment, $28,200. ASI Pool Plastering, $36,695. And Sears Pool Management at $47,547. So I think they use a third party to do the work, which is why it's so much higher. So the Mayan Pool and Sports bid is the lowest, and that actually also includes replacement of the expansion joints around the pool, which is the caulking around the pool, which is worn down. And that needs to be done as well. We're going to do the competition pool in August when we don't have swim teams, because you can't have splash out for a few days when you do that. So it's my recommendation that we go with Mayan Pool and Sports to replaster the instructional pool, which is also the low bid of $27,525.
Any questions or discussion? I have a motion to approve the low bid.
Second.
Please vote. Carries 4-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
So next is the fairgrounds report on RFPs for the pedestrian bridge. I'm gonna let Phil do that, but first I wanna thank the council for allowing us to go approach this a different way and bid it out individually, break the job down into smaller parts. The low bid a month ago versus the low bid today is $569,750 cheaper.
Well, I think we had to do it.
And so then we'll still have the ticket booth to do. That original low quote was $325,000. That is nowhere in it's not even on the northern hemisphere as to what that will cost. But that one will end up quoting out. We're gonna, Everett and the planning department will oversee the construction, and we'll get quotes for each individual contractor, because there'll be small amounts. And he'll handle that, but I'll let Phil talk about the rest of the RFP.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. As you stated, Mayor, we did separate this out into the three major components of the project, which was the bridge, the grading, and the concrete work. We did put it out for proposals, and we did get some respondents. Well, I'll do these one at a time if y'all want to address each one. First was the bridge. Flex Fab came in at $393,552. Multiplex LLC came in at $809,469.50. And Vertical Earth came in at $474,243.58. After reviewing the proposals, we are recommending to approve the low bid from Flex Fab in the amount of $393,552.
I got a question.
Okay.
If you're gonna do the bridge, the grading, and the concrete, don't you basically, if you look at all these together, Vertical Earth's higher on that one,
Mhm.
but they're lower on the other two, wouldn't you kinda want the same company if you could get the price?
Well, not necessarily
We're
because
splitting it up to where.
So you could
Yeah,
do it.
so Vertical Earth is doing, as long as y'all approve it, they have the low bid to do all the concrete work, the walls, the handicap ramps going up to the bridge, the backfilling, and there's some drains that have to be moved in the parking lot. They'd be doing all that. Flex Fab, the way we figured out going through this process, Flex Fab doesn't build the bridge, Vertical Earth doesn't build the bridge, there's bridge manufacturers. Well, so they're buying a bridge from a bridge builder, and then
Selling it to us.
it gets shipped here. Well, they have to put it together and install it. So that part doesn't.
Same bridge.
Yep, it'd be the same bridge.
I understand.
And
And
also, Councilwoman Ledbetter, Flex Fab has worked on projects with Vertical Earth, and they have a really good relationship with each other. So I think they'll be a good partner working together on this project.
Because basically, Vertical Earth have to do all their stuff, and there'll be mounting points at each end. And then Flex Fab just goes with a crane and sets it up there, puts it together. And it just ties into what Vertical Earth has already done.
If it doesn't
So,
matter. then
yeah, it
matter.
doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Then I think you go with Flex Fab, the lowest bid.
You want to do a motion on all, or go over all three and do it at once?
Individually or,
That's up to you guys.
Okay.
If you wanna do it on all three, as long as the motion is clear and it's reflected in the minutes, then we can do it whichever way you want.
all right.
Yeah, we
I'll
do.
just do it.
Okay. As for the grading, we got two quotes. Multiplex LLC, $761,532, and Vertical Earth, $422,969.51. After reviewing these proposals, It's our recommendation to approve the low bid from Vertical Earth in the amount of $422,969.51. The final component on the concrete work, we got 3 bids. Millennium Foundations LLC was $1,170,334.40. Multiplex LLC was $1,739,146. And Vertical Earth was $930,218.65. After reviewing these proposals, it's our recommendation to approve the low bid from Vertical Earth in the amount of $930,218.65. You have any questions, I'll be glad to answer.
On FlexFab's quote for the bridge, they exclude anything electrical.
Electrical was
Do you
not,
have that? Do we have to
We'll get a
worry
quote
about
for
getting
the
a quote on that?
electrical.
we'll do
We
the
left it
electrical at
out
the
of-
end.
We're gonna be ready by second week of October?
Looking at the proposals, we should be ready by the 1st of September,
Be great.
according to what the proposers sent back to us.
Everybody pray for no rain.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big prayer,
There's no
too.
rain for rain next year.
Well, we don't like that, we'll show up with a job later, so.
Yeah.
You don't have far to go.
Yeah, we know where to find them.
But, yeah, you guys ready? I'm not gonna motion to accept all 3 lowest bids.
Please vote. Motion carries 4-0.
Thank you very much.
Item 2, report on bids for vehicle purchase.
Good evening, everyone.
And I guess you got a 98 model truck.
Actually, it's a 99. And the purpose of this item is to take that 99 Ranger out of service. It's just, there's no other way to put it, but just worn out. So I have 3 quotes here for a vehicle purchase that was approved in the 19 budget. The first quote you'll see is for a Ford Fusion S from Chestatee Ford in the amount of $18,609.59. Quote 2 is a Ford Fusion S model from Brandon Ford for $17,989. And the third one, which was kind of a little odd to me considering it wasn't mentioned in the bid process, was a Nissan Altima from Town Center for $18,347. So, with that being said, my recommendation would be that, that we accept quote number 2 for the Ford Fusion S model from Brandon Ford in the amount of $17,989. This is roughly probably about $4,000 under budget what we had set aside for.
Do you need a pickup?
I'm sorry?
Do you need a truck?
The truck that I drive now will replace the Ranger, and so this will, I guess, serve as the department head vehicle.
No, these are cars.
That's why I asked.
But he said the truck that he's using now will replace the Ranger.
Yeah, it'll stay within the department. The 99 Ranger, that's close to 200,000 miles. That it's, I mean, it's a money pit.
So I'm saying the car will be fine for the purposes it'll be used for, you
Oh,
won't need a
absolutely,
truck.
yes. As long as the truck that I'm driving now stays within the department, which that's the plan.
I'll make a motion to approve the bid from Brandon Ford.
Second.
Please vote. Carries 4-0. Thank you, Tracy.
Thank y'all.
Next is planning and zoning, CD center rezoning.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, the reason we put this on here is one of the city center, was not in the county, so we didn't annex it. But we need to know how you want us to zone that piece of property, once it is annexed into the city. Virtually every piece of property the city has is institutional, but that doesn't necessarily make sense here unless you amend your zoning ordinance, because under institutional, you can't have retail trade establishments. And at the city center, you're expected to have retail trade establishments. The options for what you could do, the one that came to mind was OCMS, Office Commercial Multi-Story. And that would allow, we believe, all the principal uses that you're looking at doing at the city center. The one thing to be aware of, and of course you'll be controlling this so long as you own it, is that you do have a much higher, or a pretty significantly higher limit on the height of the building in OCMS versus what you have in institutional. Institutional has a 4-story height limit, OCMS is a 6-story height limit. That may be good, may be bad, I just want to bring it to your attention. The other things that you can do in institutional that you cannot do in OCMS, in case you're concerned, you can have a circus. In the institutional zoning category, you cannot do that in OCMS. You can also have the cemetery in institutional that you can't have in OCMS. So circuses and cemeteries, you cannot do those if we go OCMS. So this is the part of the land that is right there on 20 that was already part of the city that you purchased for the city center. Not all of it had to be annexed, because a portion was already in the city.
So we purchased it.
But you still need to rezone it.
So how we
It's not how it is.
It's
It's
zoned
how it
out
is.
as
That's
institutional.
what we're trying to do.
Have a business.
We might want to have a circus there.
No, well, you need to,
Small service.
you need to though have your zoning be appropriate for the use. But mainly because you're gonna be setting yourself up for if you have uses in your categories that aren't, let me put it this way. If you were to have a property that was zoned M1, just for example, and then you started doing a whole bunch of uses just because it's your property in M1 that aren't appropriate for an M1 zoning category, you're setting yourself up.
We gotta play with the same rules that everybody that,
Like
they're
I said,
in-
You just set
we
yourself
might
up
want to
so
have
that
a
somebody else
circus.
wants M1 and then they want to be able to get their property rezoned. That's the concern. And just to make sure our zoning is consistent.
so,
It makes sense that. You're right, you're exempt, I mean, you don't think we don't have. No, you don't, you don't, but when when we zone the property, that's, and the other reason is, we're zoning a lot of other property over there as part of, when we brought it into the city, we're required to zone it, and so that's the other reason that we're.
and so,
doing
did it end up being that part of the property that we didn't purchase was in the city already?
Part of the
The-
property you did purchase was already in the city, but a large portion of it was not.
I'm saying the two pieces of property that the previous owner still owns, we rezoned that, but was all that property in what was the county, or did
Yes.
some of it
Yes,
reside in the city? I didn't know where that line,
that was all in the county.
When?
correct, Scott? That was all in the
Okay.
county, yes, sir. Yeah, and that's already been zoned.
yeah, I was just, didn't know if part of it crossed over that line, because it was that was part of the original city limit.
Yes, sir.
City limit,
Right.
it was actually a curve,
Yeah.
you know.
But I'm virtually certain that 100% of that was
Okay.
already that was in the county.
All right.
Those parts were.
I just wanted to make sure we didn't run into that. Oh, well, this 100
Change.
feet is in the
Right.
city, but we didn't rezone that, you know. So OCMS would allow us to do what we're doing.
It would, it's just we've never used it before, and it's your land, and you need to tell us what you want us to run with. Either we do OCMS, or if you wanted to keep it consistent and have all cities on the property be institutional, then we need to amend your zoning ordinance to, so that we're just gonna be in conformance with everything else that we're trying to do. To me, it makes sense to do OCMS, but that's your decision.
Because in institutional, we can't do what we're going to do.
Well, to Councilman Light's point, you could, but you're setting yourself up for a situation where other people who have property that's zoned institutional and they want to do a retail trade establishment, and here you are, the city, saying, well, we'll do retail trade establishment in ours, but you can't do it in yours. And it's not the best optics when it comes to considering other people's zoning. It's better to play by your rules.
Because think about it, if, let's just say the development authority went and bought a piece of land, well then you're gonna zone it to institutional, and then if they are turning around and selling it for, you know, something, then you gotta rezone it again. You might as well buy it under the category that you want that to be.
And
But is there a reason highway business doesn't work?
All it's got to be.
Yeah, I mean, how a business would work, it's just that it's a little more intensive uses, so there's some uses maybe there that you wouldn't want to consider.
Like what?
Like outside storage vehicle sales.
Outside
Storage yards.
outside storage,
I think it would allow everything you want to do. If you're thinking the city will always and forever own this, and there's no chance the city would ever sell it. And if the city one day was to, you know, to decide that it's in your best interest to sell this private, that's when you open yourself up for a lot of potential uses that you may not want to have down there unless you rezone it.
What's the,
So does OCMS block some of those uses?
It does.
Okay.
so is there any downside to rezoning it to OCMS?
Height, if you don't like
Just
the
that.
height.
We're not,
Six-
we
that's
don't
the
have
only one.
anything but two-story buildings on,
Okay.
that's it.
And you're good, and you're fine with that. You're fine with that.
It's gonna be owned by the downtown development authority, right?
Right.
So if they sold the piece, somebody gets on to CMS, might build a 6-story office complex or something. But I don't guess that'd be terrible.
Yeah, I don't,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I don't,
What else, you built 6 stories?
yeah, but I don't foresee any property on there that,
Hotel.
They wanna sell.
I mean, I'm
It's
just
gonna be
saying
buildable
it's,
after it's-
right,
It's gonna be used up.
Sure.
Yeah.
we're gonna be using up the buildable, you know, the park space, that's gotta get set aside for perpetuity anyway.
And just so you know, we'll have to go through, we'll do a rezoning of this, it'll be a city initiated rezoning. If we want to do those CMS, then we'll move in that direction. So,
Makes the most sense to me.
okay, we do not need any action on that tonight, Mr. Mayor, you'll take that action when you actually consider the rezoning itself.
Moving on to report on bids for a dump truck for utilities.
We have no cool videos tonight, I'm sorry.
How old's your dump truck?
Well, okay, so we have 3 bids, this is a budgeted item for 2019.
How old are you replacing?
How old is the
Yeah.
one we're replacing? That's a good question, I don't know the age of it. I think is the one that was built 1992.
Studebaker.
1992.
All right.
1992.
You're good if it's a 92 model.
Yes, 92.
If it was newer than 98, you're going to come back and see us.
Y'all gonna kick me out? So, anyway, we had 3 bids. The low bid came from the state contract holder, Wade Ford, in the amount of $78,883.00. Peach State Truck submitted a bid for $79,737.16, and then Trans Power, and somehow that got bumped down to the bottom, I'm not sure how, but $87,377.67, and we're recommending going with a low bid from Wade Ford.
Motion to approve the low bid.
Please vote. Carries 4-0.
Here's a fancy picture of the truck, in case you wanted to see it. Okay, so the next bid is something we've been working on for a year. It's a big upgrade for our water treatment plant. All this equipment is about 25 years old. That's about the life expectancy of a chemical feed system or any type of equipment at a water treatment plant. Pretty much your concrete's gonna last 50 years. your equipment's gonna last about 25, so this is right at its life expectancy. We had, we requested bids, advertised for bids. We had 4 plan holders, so we had 2 at the bottom, they did not submit a bid. The 2 at the top were the 2 that we received. The low bid came from Heavy Construction Incorporated in the amount of $4,803,000. The second highest bid came from IHC Construction Company LLC in the amount of $4,852,000. And we recommend going with Heavy Construction as the low bidder.
What were they, did y'all get the initial bids and they weren't exactly what we needed? It says they're modified.
Right, so you have all trained me very well. And so when I get bids back, we start really going through them. And I found some areas where we could cut. It was actually $500,000 we cut out of this bid. So what we decided was that $500,000 worth of equipment was something we could either put off till a later date, or, you know, truthfully, our water treatment plant's getting to the age that we're really gonna have to consider replacing the whole thing. So anyway, just, we went through about a 3 or 4 hour meeting, I guess it was, and cut about $500,000 worth out of it to bring it down below $5 million. And that's.
Did you decide that was the best thing to do?
I
Or
did.
does it all need replacing now?
No, this was more electronic equipment. It's called SCADA. It's our system. It's like a computer system that monitors things that are pumping or operating. And we decided jointly as the operators, myself, the engineer, everyone, we came to the conclusion that we could do without the extra $500,000. We just felt like we should cut that out at this time. But if we think that's important, you know, we'll budget it for another year. But we always try to be as conservative as we can. And, I think the city is very conservative minded, and so we try to follow suit with all that. But we believe that this will handle the situation. It will replace the, in essence, dilapidated systems that are there that need to be replaced severely. And we believe that that's a good price for what we need done.
It's something we've been planning on.
It is something we've been planning on. We've been working on it for about 2 years. And in fact, we requested to be able to bid it out about a year ago. It's taken that long. It's a very complex system, and we wanted to make sure that we had all the components in place that we needed to operate the water treatment plant properly. And this will get us to the point where we need to be.
And that was in the budget for this year?
It's a capital improvement project, so it's not really in the operational budget, but it is a capital improvement project that was planned probably for 2 or 3 years, actually.
And then the $150,000 owner contingency allowance?
So in
That's-
all these projects that we do, we have to build in for, you know, if you put a manhole here and you dig down, there's a rock, you might have to move it, a pipe, you might have to do an additional, you know, amount of work. Generally, a lot of that comes back. We don't use it.
That's what I was getting at.
But it's there just in case. We actually had a deductive change order today for $100,000 on, which project was that? It was the phase 1 of West Side 36-inch line. So although we had the $100,000 in there in the event of an emergency, we didn't need it. So we turned it back into the budget. So now there's a positive of $100,000 in our capital project budget now.
Any other questions?
I'll make a motion that we take Heavy Construction's bid.
Please vote. Carries 4-0.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. This is another item. This was actually in the operations budget of the wastewater treatment plant. These are 2 automatic samplers. They look kind of like this. It's kind of hard to describe. They have a computer. Computer is flow-paced, you know, based on how much water is going through. You know, you have different times of the day when more water goes through the wastewater plant and certain times of the day when there's not as much. So those samplers sample based on the amount of flow going by them on a flow meter. And there's a refrigeration system, and, you know, there's a record keeping in there, so.
I thought Heath was the sampler.
He has a little truck.
When you look at those pictures, they look like they're made by Kenmore.
It
They look like a washing machine and a mini fridge.
That's the spin cycle. Yeah, well, so we needed two, one for, you call the wastewater coming in the influent, and the clean water going out, you call it the effluent. So we have an influent sampler and an effluent sampler. They cost the same. So we requested to replace the two that are of age that need to be replaced. And the total bid, we advertised on the state procurement website, so we were out there. The only bid we got was from the Hop Company, which is the company that supplied our current samplers that we're replacing. They're an excellent company. They sell a lot of lab equipment to us. We have two labs, a water lab and a wastewater lab, and we have quite a bit of pretty high-tech equipment that comes from Hop. So we recommend going with that bid of $24,641.66 for two samplers.
Any questions or comments?
Motion to approve the bid.
Please vote. Carries 4-0. And lastly, a resolution for actual cost utility agreement with the DOT.
So this is like a positive coming into the budget instead of money going out. So we began buying easements on the side, you know, say a 10-foot easement on the side of state highways and county highways that we knew were, you know, the widening of those roads were imminent, probably about 10 or 12 years ago. And about 5 years ago, we laid a new 12-inch line along 369, probably about a mile long. And where this line crosses Setting Down Creek, I've actually got a picture. Are y'all familiar with the bridge there on 369 at Setting Down Creek? So our water line is, if you look, here's an aerial, see where the riprap is in the creek, that's where we laid our water line. It looks like the bridge is caving in, but that's just the way the picture showed up, so I'm sorry about that. But our water line terminates in that field up there, and they're gonna move the bridge completely over on the other side of those power lines there. And because they're coming over on our water line, and our water line's in a 10-foot easement outside the state right-of-way, they're gonna have to purchase our easement along with that water line, and they have to reimburse us for it. So it's sort of our insurance policy. We pay folks for easements, which is an expense, an additional expense in a water line project. But at the end of the day, in cases like this, it pays off. So in this case, the Georgia DOT has agreed to reimburse us $386,080, which is 100% of the cost of moving this 12-inch water line out of the way of their road widening project.
So you've already had a bid, you sent that to them?
Well, what we had to do, we had to get our engineer to come up with a cost estimate, and then we sent that to them, and they looked to make sure it was appropriate, and so they agreed with our cost assessment.
I can't believe they just said, I can't get it.
Will it take that much or more?
Oh, it should be less. It's not a very long segment. I mean,
I can't get it.
that's about right. We're also gonna have to buy another easement.
Amy the charmer.
So, if it is more, do they give us the remainder? So
They actually pay the actual cost.
they pay the actual cost, they
Are
won't
we
know what
buying
the actual
more
cost is.
Oh.
We are, yes ma'am. We're gonna put the new line outside the future state right of way.
So they pay the actual cost, they don't just settle with you for an amount?
It's a resolution that we do and they do, and then they pay for it, whatever.
Well, that's good.
So, you know, we're fortunate in some areas to have easements. In other areas, I would estimate, just for your information, as the board, we've spent about $16 million moving water lines out of the way of county road widening projects. You know, Castleberry, Bethelview, Pilgrim Mill, we're coming up on 369, there's some others. In some of those cases, we have easements. In some of those cases, it was, you know, those lines were laid years ago, but
So if we don't, we gotta pay for it.
we gotta pay
If
for
we
it.
do, they have to pay for it.
They do. And the whole 369 project was about the time, when we laid that 12-inch line was about 10 years ago. And that entire line, for the most part, maybe save one parcel, is inside an easement outside the state right-of-way. So when Forsyth County and the DOT widen 369, they're gonna have to pay for that entire water line down that roadway. so they'll
John,
reimburse
is
us
this the
for that.
time that we can leverage this? Do we need to have a bigger pipe, or is this what we need for now?
Well, according to we have a water master plan, our engineers studied and put it into a computer model, and we were working on completing that master plan. So if the 12-inch line is the proper size for that area at the periphery of the water and sewer service area, so we're in good shape. But, and it's not that long of a segment of line, it's just the length of the bridge plus a little bit, where they're moving that bridge over to bring the alignment of the road, straightened out.
Any other questions? I have a motion to pass a resolution.
Keep buying another one.
Make a motion that we pass this resolution.
Please vote. Carries 4-0. There are no announcements. Executive session for any reason? No?
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Thank.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Please vote. Carries 4-0.